and go.
So the Buford Foundation is really our... I'm sorry, do you want me to...
Buford Foundation's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Buford. We're going beyond now, but Buford Foundation...
I can't get it out of my head. It's the Buford Foundation because it's been like a decade since...
No. I think there's people even on our board who will still say Buford Foundation. So don't worry about it.
The Buford Foundation was our first real safe harbor program. It kickstarted that whole effort. And it has been in the program the longest, very continuously since then. And we are just starting to get real traction with the toads on the ground. Reintroduction and reestablishment of endangered species is a long-term process. It doesn't happen overnight. Especially when you're dealing with things like we're dealing with the toad, with his disease and things like that. And so now, after, 14 years or so of doing this, we are starting to see wild breeding at Porter Lake consistently over the last several years. And this is happening program-wide in the toad program. It's happening at Mortensen Lake National Wildlife Refuge as well. To recover the toad, to get it off the endangered species list, we need 5 self-sustaining populations. Right now, you could consider Mortensen and potentially Buford as the only 2 potentially self-sustaining populations there are. And that is because on every survey out here, we find some adults, we find some evidence of wild breeding. I don't know, like if we stepped away right now and stopped putting toads on the landscape here, I can't say that it would survive without our assistance, but this is as close as we've ever come between this and Mortensen to self-sustaining populations, which is huge. I mean, since the 80s, we have never had anything like that in the toad program. So this is a unique property in terms of conserving the toad. If this property goes away in terms of toad, a commitment to toads, it cuts our potential breeding or potential self-sustaining populations in half and sets us back a decade in terms of conservation of the toads.
That's a big deal. What may I ask? Why this land has proven successful? What is happening here that has led it to be in one of the 2 spots that is working?
It is in large part because of the commitment of the foundation and their willingness to help manage this property with the toad in mind. Art Anderson has worked with us to maintain water levels at a level that is consistent with toad habitat. We manage grazing on this property specifically for toad habitat, not for cranking out the most, AUMs that you can, the most cows you can, but specifically for the toad. And so we have established what I feel like is a really good relationship with the foundation, and as a result have managed over time toad habitat that seems to be doing well. And so I would say the partnership, the relationship with the foundation, and the commitment of all the people involved has made this a unique property for us.
And talk to me a little bit about what's happening here. Like this is very, very much so for somebody who might not even be familiar with it on a very 30,000 foot level. What is happening on this land? So let me start it by saying we have this 412 acres of land that has irrigation on it in order to maintain pasture land, but also these lakes that are toad habitat. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what your agency, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and others are doing with this land right now? What is somebody at 30,000 feet? I feel like thinks there's just a lot of different people with their hands in the batter here. But I think another way of saying it is that it's a pretty extraordinary partnership of a lot of different agencies. That's actually pretty rare in some of our experiences, how well everything is working together here. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know I covered a lot of different sort of areas.
Yeah, so what's happening on the ground here is it's a pretty far-reaching conservation collaborative. It takes a village to recover a toad, right? So We have a collection of zoos across the country, including the Omaha Zoo, or the Henry Dolly Zoo in Omaha, that are raising toads, breeding toads, producing tadpoles, and then all of these cohorts of toads, all of these tadpoles that come from all these different zoos, the genetic diversity of all of that gets shipped to Laramie, and we try to put the most diverse collection of toads on the landscape as we can. So there's a whole big zoo component to this that is maintaining the genetic diversity and working to put toads on the landscape out here. And then once we get to the wild side of things, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, the Laramie Rivers Conservation District, the NRCS, all of those entities have a hand in managing this property and helping the Buford Foundation, I should say, manage this property in order to be optimal for the toads. And it's all of those pieces working together that make this possible. And it's really amazing to me that we've built this collaboration over the years to work as well as it has. Everyone that I've just mentioned has been consistently involved over the last 15 years out here, 14 years out here. And they are all still in it, they are all committed, and there are no real conflicts. We've worked out a system that has allowed this to happen.
Yeah, and it's pretty neat. I think what I've learned since I've come out here is, like, I went and met with the rancher Dallas Talbot, who runs the cattle out here. I've met with Art. I've met with obviously some of the different agencies involved. But I mean, it's one of the things that is just so inspiring to me is that it's like private, public, landowner, like everybody is working together really, really well out here on this land right now, I feel like. Which is just amazing to me to encounter, because it's, especially when you get into some regulated land management stuff, it's not so easy, I don't think, to come up with that level of partnership and camaraderie. So it's the toads are out here, but I mean the habitat that we were just out releasing toads in, one of the things that I've noticed as I've been here in person is that it's remarkably rich in wildlife. Like for this sort of sagebrush sea sort of area, it's always rich in wildlife, but I mean, there's no way I could count the number of birds out here. I see the big game. Can you talk a little bit from your perspective how the work towards the toads is also doing for what it's doing for other wildlife as well?
Yeah, I mean, by virtue of being conserved for toad conservation, this landscape here has also been conserved for the host of other wildlife that use the area. If this got chopped up into ranchettes, and fenced off ranchettes, that would be, that would restrict antelope movement through the area, and it would, migration of a variety of ungulates in the area. It would potentially affect the water quality of the area. It could have a variety of impacts that make this less suitable as a whole for a host of wildlife. It makes sense, conservation sense, to keep landscapes like this as intact as possible, to minimize impacts across a variety of species. Yeah, and just to you, and I should have asked this at the beginning, I know who you are, Doug, and I forgot, but for this video's purposes, can you say who you are and who you work for and what your role is with this? Yeah, Doug Keinath, and I am with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Wyoming Ecological Services Field Office. I am their recovery coordinator, so I work on getting endangered species back off the endangered species list, recovering them to the point where they're self-sustaining.
And just in the last, say, like 45 seconds here, is there anything else regarding this land? And we're talking to people back in Omaha who maybe haven't even been here, or when they've been here, they see it, they know it's beautiful, but can you say something about what this land and this conservation effort and this partnership, what it means to you personally?
I find this conservation effort, I find personally moving, because It centers around a landscape that is dear to me, the high plains around Laramie, Wyoming, and for a species that we being humanity, has had a hand in pushing towards extinction. The fact that we as a society have made a commitment to step up and make sure that that doesn't happen, and if we can, turn it around and put them back on the landscape. That is something that is dear to me. That's what led me into wildlife biology to begin with. I think we have a responsibility to care for all this, and this is a project that brings together so many like-minded folks to work together towards a common goal. I find it very personally rewarding to be associated with.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for all you do, Doug. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. I'll say the board of Go Beyond Nebraska Buford Foundation, whatever you want to call it. So thank you, Doug.
Yep, you're welcome.
Bye.